This conference will now be recorded.
Hello students. So now we are learning about transport in plants. It's the 11th chapter and in NEET 2024 syllabus. They have included the means of transport, plant water relations, transpiration, guttation, all these points you have to learn. So in the previous class we have learned about means of transport, and in that we have learned about long distance transport and short distance transport. And in the means of transport, we have learned about active transport and passive transport, right? Active transport and passive transport. And in passive transport we have learned about diffusion pressure, facilitated diffusion, carrier proteins, channel proteins, then what is osmosis. Then in osmosis we have learned about hypertonic solution, isotonic solution and all. Then we have learned about plasmolysis, imbibition. So all these concepts we are learning under which one means of transport. So next we are moving to plant water relations. Okay, plant water relations. See, we know that water is the most abundant compound of all living cells, right? That means around 85 to 95 percentage of the weight, 85 to 95 percentage of the weight of a growing herbaceous plant that consists of this much water, right? So 85 to 95 percentage is water. Then worldwide vegetational distribution, that is also determined by this water. So water is a very important. So this water is a principal determinant of vegetation distribution also. All over the world you can see water is very important for plant growth, right? So to complete or for the complete explanation of a plant water relation, and for an understanding of this, some standard terms are there which we need to learn for the explanation. Okay, that is some terms I'll tell you. Water potential, then solute potential, pressure potential. So like this, several terms are there which we need to learn. So first, let's see one by one, like osmotic potential. Okay, osmotic potential. We'll see first osmotic potential. We'll mention this as psi s. So osmotic potential This is the potential of water molecules to move from a less concentrated solution to a more concentrated solution across a semi-permeable membrane. Okay. So potential, osmotic potential means the potential of water molecules how these water molecules are moving through a semi-permeable permeable membrane. Okay, and from where to where it is moving, the movement is from a less concentrated solution to a more concentrated solution. Less concentrated solution to more concentrated solutions. So that is called as osmotic potential. Osmotic potential, that means will with symbol psi as we'll mention that. So potential or the capacity of water molecules through a semi-permeable membrane. Movement is through a semi-permeable membrane, and how it will move from a less concentrated solution to more concentrated solution. Clear? Next comes the Turgor pressure. Turgor pressure, or we can call it as the pressure potential. Okay, Turgor pressure or pressure potential, that will mention as psi p. Okay, pressure potential. Okay, this, what do you mean by pressure potential? This is a pressure exerted by the protoplasm against the cell wall. Turgor pressure, you have learned about Turgor pressure, right? What is Turgor pressure? So Turgor pressure means the pressure exerted by the protoplasm. Pressure by protoplasm. This protoplasm, where you can see it is inside the cell. So this, from inside the cell, the protoplasm is exerting a pressure against the cell wall. Against cell wall. So a pressure is getting exerted by the protoplasm against the cell wall. That is called as the Turgor pressure or the pressure potential, and we'll mention by psi s. Okay, so Turgor pressure is otherwise called as pressure potential, and this is a pressure exerted by the protoplasm against cell wall. That's why it is called as the Turgor pressure or the pressure potential. Next one is matrix potential. Matrix potential. So what is this matrix potential? Matrix potential will mention psi m. Okay. This matrix potential, that is the expression, or this is an expression of adsorption of water by colloidal particles. Adsorption of water by colloidal particles. Okay. Or we can say the surface in plant cells. Adsorption of water on the surface in plant cells. Okay, so that is called as matrix potential. So here you need to learn this osmotic potential. That is one important question, and all these points you need to learn. This is a previous year question. Okay, and here Turgor pressure. This is also one important question. Turgor pressure or pressure potential. So you should know what is the Turgor pressure or pressure potential. Then another one question. All these are the important questions. Matrix potential, and we are mentioning how we are mentioning that psi s, psi p, psi m, everything you should know. Then next comes the water potential. water potential. See, water potential means the potential energy of water. Potential energy of water. That is the water potential. That means the free energy of water molecules. Free energy of water molecules. So potential energy of water is called as water potential. And what do you mean by that? The free energy of water molecules, which we are mentioning as psi W. That is the water potential. And water potential of pure water at atmospheric pressure. Water potential of water potential of pure water. Pure water. See here, what is water potential? This is a previous year question, and here this is a free energy. All these points are just like a statement, you will get the questions. Okay, so all these are important previous year questions. So whichever point I'm mentioning here, all these are questions. That's why I'm mentioning it as a separate point. Okay. So potential energy of water, that is called as water potential. And what do you mean by water potential? That is a free energy of water molecules. And we are mentioning it as psi W. And water potential of pure water at atmospheric temperature. Sorry, atmospheric pressure. At atmospheric pressure. So at atmospheric pressure, the water potential of pure water will be zero. It is zero. This is very important question. In previous year, you got this question. So water potential of pure water at atmospheric pressure is zero, and water potential W, water potential psi S, psi W, that is the sum of the osmotic potential. Osmotic potential. Osmotic potential, how you will mention? Psi S, osmotic potential. Then pressure potential. Pressure potential, how you will mention pressure potential? Psi P. And metric potential. Okay, metric potential psi M. So how we can write? Water potential psi W, that is equal to osmotic potential plus, that means psi S plus pressure potential psi P, pressure potential plus psi M, metric potential. So this you should not forget. This question has come 4 times. Okay, so this is a very important question, previous year question. Psi W, or the water potential. See, we have learned what is osmotic potential, potential of water molecules to move from a less concentrated solution to a more concentrated solution. And what is pressure potential or Turger pressure? Turger pressure means the pressure which is exerted by the protoplasm against the cell wall. Right. And what is metric potential? That is the expression of adsorption of water by colloidal particles. Right. So all this water potential is the sum of the osmotic potential, pressure potential, and metric potential. Okay. So this should be always in your mind. This is very important. This is repeated many times. The question has come several times. So this is very, very important. Okay. Psi W is equal to psi S plus psi P plus psi M. Then another thing which you want to learn, that is diffusion pressure deficit. Diffusion pressure deficit. Okay, diffusion pressure deficit. In short form, will mention as DPD, diffusion pressure deficit. See, the difference between the diffusion pressure of a solution and that of its pure solvent. Okay, solution and its pure solvent, that is called as diffusion pressure deficit. Difference between the diffusion pressure. Difference between the diffusion pressure of a solution. Okay. Difference between the diffusion pressure of a solution and the diffusion pressure of that solvent. It's pure solvent. See here the diffusion pressure of a solution. First we need to mention the diffusion pressure of a solution. Then the pure solvent, diffusion pressure of that. Here the solution is made from a solvent, right? So that solvent's pure pressure, diffusion pressure of the pure solvent, and the diffusion pressure of pure solvent. So that difference is called as diffusion pressure deficit. So in a fully turgid cell, if a cell is in a turgid condition, here what is diffusion pressure deficit? That is very important. It's a previous year question, and here this is also a previous year question. So here while saying about the concept itself, I'm solving all the questions. So try to note down that fully turgid cell, in that condition the diffusion pressure deficit, the dpd is equal to 0. In a fully turgid cell, the diffusion pressure deficit is 0, but in a flaccid cell, this is also one repeated question. In a flaccid cell, the diffusion pressure deficit is equal to the osmotic potential. Okay. These questions are repeated once. In a fully turgid cell, dpd will be 0, but in a flaccid cell, diffusion pressure deficit will be equal to osmotic potential. Means the potential of water molecules to move from a less concentrated solution to a more concentrated solution. So in a flaccid cell, we are saying this condition. Okay. Flaccid cell means dpd will be equal to osmotic potential. Now we are going to learn how these water molecules or absorption of water in plants, how it is taking place. absorption of water in plants. So how this absorption of water in plants that is happening? See, water that is absorbed along with the mineral solutes, right? Water is absorbed by roots. Through roots, water is getting absorbed, and along with water, minerals are also getting absorbed, right? So there, here we said about roots, right? So water is absorbed along with minerals or mineral solutes by the root. And in root, which part is absorbing that? Root hairs, right? Root hairs are absorbing this, and this absorption is purely by diffusion, right? There are diffusion processes taking place. That's why water is moving along with mineral solutes to that root, and that's how the absorption of water is taking place. So there are mainly two pathways for this water movement from root hairs to the endodermis of plants. From root hairs, see, we have learned about the structure of a root, then leaf, stem, everything, right? So we know the internal structure. So from root hairs, how water is moving to the endodermis? This is by diffusion. So how this diffusion is taking place? So for this diffusion process, there are two main pathways. Two pathways are there for this water movement from root hairs to endodermis of plants. So what are they? Two pathways that there we said. First one is apoplast pathway. First one is apoplast pathway. So here apoplast pathway, here the water passes from root hairs to xylem. Root hairs to xylem. Water is passing from root hairs to xylem through the cell wall of intervening cells. And it is without crossing any membrane. That means non-living part of the cell. Root hairs to xylem through the cell wall. It is through the cell wall of intervening cells. And this is without crossing any membrane. Any membrane. This is called as apoplast pathway. Next comes the symplast pathway. So let's see what is that symplast pathway. Second movement, second type of movement, or the absorption of water. Uh, we said it is mainly two pathways are there for the water movement from root hair to endodermis. So first one we said the apoplast pathway, and second one symplast pathway. What is the symplast pathway? See, the symplast pathway, there the water from cell to cell. Water movement from cell to cell, right? And this is by crossing membrane. Okay, from cell to cell, water is moving, and by crossing the membrane, that means by crossing, that is the living part of the cell. So that may be of two types. Which one? The symplast pathway, it's of two types. It may be of two types. First one, non-vacuolar symplast pathway. Non-vacuolar simplest pathway. Okay, first one. That means movement occurs through plasmodesmata of cells. Movement through plasmodesmata of cell. Clear? See, here the apoplast pathway I said, that is one repeated question and 2 times that got repeated. Then the simplest pathway we said, where the water from cell to cell by crossing the membrane. Okay, so what is simplest pathway? The moment of simplest pathway is, then they will give the option, water from cell to cell by crossing the membrane, without crossing the membrane, like that several options. It will be confusing, like you will get confused between the apoplast pathway and the simplest pathway. So make sure by reading each concept, it should be very clear. Okay, so the simplest pathway itself repeated 3 times, so it's a repeated question. And here how the movement is taking place, by crossing the membrane, and cell to cell it is moving by crossing the membrane. And there are 2 types in this simplest pathway. It may be of 2 types we said. Which are they? Non-vacuolar simplest pathway, then vacuolar simplest pathway. Vacuolar simplest pathway. Okay, so in non-vacuolar simplest pathway, this non-vacuolar and vacuolar simplest pathway both are previous year questions. So here in non-vacuolar simplest pathway, movement occurs through plasmodesmata. So here the question was like this: in non-vacuolar simplest pathway, movement of water through options they will give. So the right option is plasmodesmata of cells. Then next one, vacuolar simplest pathway, the movement of water occurs through tonoplast. Here, movement of water through tonoplast. Okay, this was also previous year question. So in a vacuolar simplest pathway, movement of water occurs through tonoplast. Clear? And in non-vacuolar, it is through plasmodesmata of cell. And next, 2 important questions, previous year questions. I'm going to explain now. So water absorption in plants. Water absorption in plants. This occurs by 2 mechanisms. So first one is active absorption. Active absorption. This was one question. Active absorption. Here the root cells are actively involved. In active absorption, root cells are actively involved. Okay. And here water passes from the cell with high DPD. What is DPD? Diffusion pressure deficit. To cells with low DPD, and finally it is reaching the xylem. Okay. So in active absorption, root cells are actively involved, and what is happening here? Water passes from cells with high diffusion pressure deficit to cells with low diffusion pressure deficit, and then it is reaching xylem. Okay, and what is happening in passive absorption. See, in passive absorption, this mainly occurs due to transpiration. Okay, passive absorption mainly occurs due to transpiration. Okay, so here, due to the development of a tension or a suction pressure gradient, it is happening, this passive absorption. Here in active absorption, root cells are actively involved and they are absorbing water. So water pressure, here water is passing from the cells with high diffusion pressure deficit to a cell which is having low diffusion pressure deficit, and that's how it is reaching, it is moving and it is reaching the xylem. Passive means due to transpiration. Here transpiration, water is getting transpired or transpiration is happening, so water is losing from the plant. So there it is creating a need of water molecules inside the body of plants, right? So due to the development of a tension or a suction pressure, that is creating the need of more water. That's how, due to that suction pressure, that or suction pressure gradient, due to that a passive absorption is taking place, that is creating a need for that water, need for that absorption. Okay, so both these are very important here. The passive absorption, that is due to the transpiration. Okay, next we need to learn about the absorption of mineral ions. Mineral ions, absorption of mineral ions. Actually, we said ions are absorbed by the plants from the soil, right? Where ions will be present in the soil, and these are absorbed by plants, right? And here from the soil, the plants are absorbing these ions, and this is by both active and passive transport, right? Their active and passive transport is happening. So through that, the absorption of ions, it is taking place. So here both active and passive transport is happening, but most of them, like except water, we can say, they most of them absorbed, most of them absorbed actively, right? That means by ATP, by utilizing ATP. So as these are present in the soil, how it will be present in the soil? Ions means they are charged particles, right? So they will be present in the soil and they cannot move across the cell membrane. That's why there will be an active movement by utilizing the energy. Okay, that's how we are saying ions, they are absorbed by plants from the soil by both active and passive transport. But most of the ions which are present in the soil, they are absorbed actively. Actively means by utilizing energy, by utilizing ATP, because they are present in the soil as charged particles, right? And these cannot move across the cell membrane without an active participation or without utilization of energy. And here, due to the active uptake of ions, ions are getting inside the plant body, right? So, and it is through active absorption. So due to the active uptake of this ion, there a water potential gradient is developing. Water potential gradient, that is developing in the root, and that helps in osmotic entry of water and That's how it's passing to the xylem, and after reaching the xylem, further it is getting transported to all parts of the plant. Okay, and up to the stem it is going, and through transpiration. There also, there then it is moving to transpiration, that processes and all. So here, first it is here active uptake by utilizing energy, and there a water potential gradient is developing in root, right? So there is a need. Now that gradient is developed, so they have to take water. Okay, so that makes the osmotic entry of water. Then it is passing to xylem, right? And after reaching to xylem, again it is getting transported to all parts of plants. That means up to the stem through the transpiration stream. This all parts it is reaching through the transpiration stream. Okay. Here one more thing you need to learn. See here, this absorption of mineral ions, from this you will get different questions and confusing statements. So here you should make sure how the absorption of mineral ions are taking place. Okay, here, from here, nearly in almost all the years questions came. In previous year question paper, in the last 10 years you can see questions from this area. Okay, then next point which you need to mention here is, see where this ions are getting absorbed, and this ions where they are reaching, they'll reach wherever it is required. They will reach like young leaves, then developing flowers, then fruits, seeds, then apical meristem, lateral meristem, then individual cells, apical meristem, lateral meristem. So according to the need, it will reach the point where it wants. So it will reach the individual cells for storage. And this is about ions. What about minerals? These minerals, they are unloaded at fine vein endings through the diffusion, and they are picked up by the cells through active uptake. Okay, these minerals are picked up by the cells through active uptake. So that's what we need to learn about the absorption of minerals. And next is about ascent of sap. Ascent of sap. This is actually the translocation of water. Okay. See, ascent of sap means the upward movement of cell sap. Upward movement of cell sap. From where to where? From root to aerial parts of plant. Aerial parts of plant. So the upward movement of cell sap from roots to aerial parts of plant, that is the ascent of sap. And this involves long distance transport of water through xylem. Long distance transport of water. Through which one? Through xylem. Ascent of sap involves long distance transport of water through xylem. Okay. Then to mention the mechanism of this ascent of sap, there are several theories. So many theories have been proposed, like vital force, then the root pressure, cohesion tension theory. So all these theories, this have been proposed to explain the mechanism of to explain the mechanism of ascent of sap. Okay, here this is important previous year question. See, this vital force theory that explains the mechanism of ascent of sap. Root pressure theory explains the mechanism of ascent of sap. Cohesion tension theory is also for explanation of mechanism of ascent of sap. So that you should remember, all these questions are repeated. This theory explains, then they will give the options, and from that right option you need to choose, that is that these theories, vital force, root pressure, cohesion tension theory, all these are explaining ascent of sap. Okay, and next previous year question, this question came two times: long distance transport of water through xylem. Okay, so ascent of sap involves long distance transport of water through xylem. And what do you mean by ascent of sap? Upward movement of cell sap from root to aerial parts of plant. This came just one time. This is a direct question, right? So ascent of sap means translocation of water. This is also one time, like just translocation of water. One time question, this one. Then this cohesion tension theory and the transpiration pull theory. That is another important question. Here, whatever points I'm going to mention, this all these questions are very important. Cohesion tension and transpiration pull theory. Transpiration pull theory. So first, I need to mention this was proposed by Dixon and Joly. Dixon and Joly in 1894. Okay, this is one previous year question. Cohesion tension and transpiration pull theory was proposed by Dixon and Joly in 1894. Then this explains what is the exact point of this theory. See, this cohesion tension and transpiration pull theory says that a water column is continuously maintained in the xylem. Okay, water column is continuously maintained. A continuous water column is maintained in the xylem. In the xylem, especially xylem of roots through the stem and into leaves. A continuous water column is maintained from the roots, and it is coming through the stem and into the leaves. Up to that it is maintained, and this is due to strong forces. Due to strong strong forces in the sense addition and cohesion. Addition and cohesion forces. Strong forces like addition. Addition means between the walls of the trachyary elements and water molecules, and cohesion means between the water molecule and xylem surface. So this produces a surface tension. This produces surface tension, and this surface tension is responsible for high capillary through tracheids and vessels. Due to this surface tension, high capillarity is getting formed. That means water movement. There is a capillary movement. So high capillarity is getting formed through tracheids and vessels. So high capillarity through tracheids and vessels. Okay, this is what you need to learn in cohesion tension and transpiration pull theory. So all these points you will get. See here, through tracheids and vessels, that is important point, and that produces surface tension, and that makes a high capillarity, that is also important, and a water column. According to cohesion tension theory and transpiration pull theory, a water column is continuously maintained from the root to the leaves. Okay, and this is due to the strong forces like adhesion and cohesion. So all the points are important, and all these are repeated previous year questions. Okay, previous year questions. Here itself I am mentioning all the points which I have mentioned. These are previous year questions. Okay, so that's about the ascent of sap. And next is transpiration. Here in transpiration, what is that transpiration? The process of water movement through the plants, right? And it is the evaporation of water from the aerial parts of plant. Evaporation of water from aerial parts of plant. So the process of water movement through plants and the evaporation. Water movement is there, right? So transpiration means it is a process of movement of water through the plant and then the evaporation from the aerial parts of plant. So which are the aerial parts like leaves, right? And four types of transpiration is exhibited in plants. Here, what is transpiration? This is a previous year question and that is a direct question. Okay, four types of transpiration. Four types. This is also important previous year question. First one is cuticular transpiration, and this is 3 to 10 percentage, and that occurs through cuticle or epidermal cells of leaves. Cuticular transpiration, epidermal cells of leaf. It's happening through the cuticle or the epidermal cells of leaves, and it is around 3 to 10 percentage. Next, second type is bark. Bark transpiration, then that transpiration, bark transpiration occurs through corky covering of stems. Okay, bark means where it will be in the corky covering of stem. And the third type is lenticular transpiration. Lenticular transpiration. This lenticular transpiration occurs through the lenticels. Lenticels. And here this lenticular transpiration, this is very less amount. That means a negligible amount of water, like 0.1 percentage is lost through this lenticular transpiration. And next, fourth type is stomatal transpiration. Stomatal transpiration, and this is more than 95 percentage of total loss of water that is taking place through stomata. So stomatal transpiration, it's more than 95 percentage of total loss of water. Okay, so majority is happening through stomatal transpiration. Lenticular is the least percentage, 0.1 percentage, and bark transpiration is taking place through the corky covering of stem, and cuticular transpiration, that is taking place around 3 to 10 percentage, and this is through the cuticle or the epidermal cells of leaf. So all the questions are previous year questions here. Cuticular transpiration, bark transpiration, either they will ask how it is taking place or the percentage of that. Lenticular transpiration, stomatal transpiration, and the least one we mentioned here, that is lenticular transpiration. Clear? We said about the stomatal transpiration, right? So stomata, we know that there are tiny apertures which is found on the epidermis of leaf and young green stem. Tiny apertures which is found on the epidermis of leaf and young stem. Right. So each stomata, here stomata, each stomata that is surrounded by two specialized epidermal cells, that is surrounded by two specialized epidermal cells, and these specialized epidermal cells are called as guard cells. So stomata is surrounded by guard cells. These are specialized epidermal cells. And these guard cells are bordered by one or more modified epidermal cells called subsidiary cells or accessory cells. And we said each stomata is surrounded by two specialized epidermal cells. These specialized epidermal cells are called as guard cells, and these guard cells are bordered by one or more than one modified epidermal cells. Modified epidermal cells, and these modified epidermal cells are called as accessory cells or subsidiary cells. Or accessory cells. Accessory cells or subsidiary cells. Okay. Next is about, see, what are guard cells? This is previous year question. And what are subsidiary cells or accessory cells? And each stomata is surrounded by guard cells. And where you can see the stomata on the epidermis of leaf and young stem. Okay. Then about the stomatal movement. Stomatal movement. Here, stomatal movement is the process of opening and closing of stomatal pore. Okay. Opening and closing of stomatal pore, that is called as stomatal movement, and this stomatal movement occurs in response to the change in turgor pressure of guard cells. This is happening according to the change in turgor pressure of guard cells. Okay. And there are two main hypotheses which is regarding to the mechanism of stomatal opening and closing. So the two main hypotheses regarding stomatal closing and opening of stomata, that is starch sugar hypothesis, starch sugar hypothesis, and the second one is K plus ion pump theory, potassium ion pump theory. Okay, K plus ion pump theory. Okay, then we need to, here in the last topic of this chapter, we are learning about the guttation. Those two theories, that K plus ion pump theory and the starch sugar hypothesis, both the hypothesis. These are the two main hypotheses regarding the mechanism of opening and closing of stomata. That is repeated previous year question. Okay, very important question. So now we are moving to guttation, which is the last topic. What do you mean by guttation? A phenomenon of exudation of liquid droplets. Exudation of liquid droplets, or we can say water, from the edges of leaves. From the edges of leaves, and through which guttation is happening? Through the pores. Guttation or the exudation of liquid droplets, that is called as guttation, and this is happening from the edges of leaf, and through which opening it is happening? Through the pores, which is called as hydatodes. Okay, and this is mainly occurs during night time. During night time it is seen, and early morning when transpiration rate is very low. Night time and early morning. Okay, so that time transpiration rate will be very low, right? Transpiration rate is low that time. Okay, so that is called as guttation. So this is, what is guttation? That is one question, and it is happening through the pores, which is called as hydatodes, and during night time and early morning guttation will be more because transpiration rate is low that time. Okay, and see, this guttation you might have observed on leaf edges, water droplets will be there in the early morning and all, you can see. So that is the guttation process, and it is more during the night time and early morning. Clear? So here these are the main topics. Here the guttation, here three main questions you will get. Early morning it will be more, and transpiration early morning and night time it will be more, and transpiration rate will be low, and it is happening through hydatodes and the exudation of liquid droplets, that is called as guttation. Okay, these are the main questions. So here you will get questions from means of transport, then plant water relation, ascent of sap, transpiration, then the flow and transport. Okay, so these are the main topics which you need to cover from this chapter. Thank you.